Wow. Couldn't even make it to the wedding ceremony. Ma'am, I hear you saying, oh, my friends made me. She set me up. Oh, my husband put it, or not husband, my fiance put it in the universe and he put it out there. Listen, I'm not buying any of it. Any of it. You knew what you were doing.
Subject: I made a mistake, but I still believe in us. From Kayla: Hi there. I've watched your channel for a long time now, and I know you usually read emails from men. I know your audience leans more toward hearing stories of betrayal from a man's perspective, and maybe I'll get dragged in the comments, or maybe you'll skip over this entirely, but I felt compelled to share my story anyway. Maybe it's my way of reaching out. Maybe it's my way of trying to make sense of what happened. But most importantly, maybe this is my only chance to say my piece in full without being cut off or judged before I get to the heart of it. My name is Kayla. I'm 29. I was engaged up until about 2 months ago to a man named Nate. He's 31. We met in a very pure, almost movie-like way, and for the longest time, I believed God Himself had written our names next to each other. What happened between us, what I did, destroyed all of that. I want to be upfront and say, yes, I was disloyal. I cheated on Nate during my bachelorette party. I crossed a line that I can never uncross. I'm not writing to excuse what I did, but I am writing to explain it. All of it. The good, the bad, and the deeply embarrassing. Let me start at the beginning. Nate and I met at the church function. It was a youth outreach event, something both of our churches were involved in. His in the West End, mine in the South. Our two congregations came together for a back-to-school charity event. I was working the snack stand with two of my church sisters, and he was helping set up the stage for the musicians. He was tall, warm-skinned, with this goofy grin that didn't match the quiet, focused way he carried himself. I remember he was struggling to get the mic working, and when I offered to help, he made a joke about how I looked more like someone who sings than someone who fixes things. That made me laugh so hard, I dropped a whole bottle of water on my foot. That moment, that silly little moment, was the beginning of everything. He asked for my number later that evening after one of the pastors introduced us. We started texting immediately. None of that playing it cool nonsense. I remember thinking, wow, this feels grown. Our first date was coffee and a walk around the lake. And by the second week of knowing each other, we were talking every night on the phone like teenagers. We'd pray together, watch sermons over video call, and even fast together on certain weekends. I was falling for him hard, but I felt safe falling. At one point, we joked about eloping. That's how strong our connection was. But Nate, ever the planner, told me, let's not rush what God is preparing. I respected that. I loved that. I still love that about him. We stayed monogamous for 2 solid years, and we were celibate the entire time. That was something we both agreed on. Waiting until marriage wasn't easy. We had our moments where things got heated, but we always pulled back. Nate was a strong leader in that way. I trusted him with my body, even when I wasn't giving it to him yet. And when he proposed to me, right there at the altar after Sunday service, in front of both of our families, I felt like the luckiest woman alive. We dove straight into wedding planning. Looking back, maybe it was too fast. We were trying to do everything in 6 months. Venue, dress, invitations, all of it. My maid of honor, Tasha, was a godsend in terms of planning, but I didn't realize how much influence she'd have over me until later. When the topic of bachelor and bachelorette parties came up, Nate made it very clear. He didn't want either of us having one. He said if we were going to celebrate, we should do it together. I agreed. I was actually relieved. I didn't want some wild night out. I thought it was silly. And for a while, that was the plan. We'd just have a joint dinner with close friends, something chill. But Tasha, she wasn't having it. She kept saying, "Girl, you only get one bachelorette party in your life, and you need to let loose before you become a wife. And don't be boring like these church girls who think one night is going to send them to hell." She'd roll her eyes every time I mentioned Nate's opinion. And then my mom got involved. My mother, of all people, said it might be good for me to blow off some steam. I was working full time, planning a wedding, barely sleeping. Everyone made it sound like a bachelorette party was just the medicine I needed. So I caved. I told Nate I wanted to have one. Just something simple. A dinner. Maybe a karaoke night. Nothing wild. He looked at me long and hard and said, "I just don't want anything to happen that can't be undone." That hit me in the chest, but I brushed it off. I said, "You know me, I'd never." What I didn't know, what I never in a million years imagined, is that Nate booked the Airbnb for the party. And even worse, I didn't know that Airbnb belonged to his cousin. His cousin, a former Marine. Quiet, observant, intense. I thought he was just some guy who happened to be at the house to do maintenance or check us in. Nope. He was there to watch me, to spy, to report back to Nate. I didn't realize any of this until everything blew up later. Let me walk you through the night. The Airbnb was stunning, classy. It had a rooftop deck and a small pool. It felt more like a spa retreat than a wild party house. There were about 10 of us total, mostly church friends, a few coworkers, and of course, Tasha. We ordered food, had mocktails, played games. It really was innocent, at first. But as the night went on, people started pulling out the harder stuff. Tequila showed up. Then came the music that Nate always said didn't feed the spirit. Then the male entertainer, yes, a stripper, who Tasha had secretly hired just for laughs. I was mortified. I tried to keep it light, but I should have shut it down. That's where the line blurred for me. I was dancing, drinking, laughing too much. I let my guard down. Then came him. One of the stripper's friends. A guy who showed up late, supposedly to pick the stripper up, but somehow stuck around. He started flirting. I should have walked away. I didn't. Tasha egged it on. "Let the girl have her night," she yelled. "It's her last night of freedom, and I don't even know how to say this without sounding disgusting." I kissed him. That was all it took. One moment, one decision, one lapse in judgment. I kissed him. I let him take it further, and it was Nate's cousin who saw everything. He called Nate that night. I didn't know it, but my fiancée already knew before I got home the next day. He didn't confront me right away. He waited. He pretended nothing was wrong. He smiled. He even kissed my forehead when I left his place. But then, that Sunday, right after church, he asked to speak to me alone. He told me what he knew, word for word. He described the room, the timing, the clothes I was wearing. My heart dropped into my stomach. I denied it at first. I cried. I begged. I blamed the alcohol. I blamed Tasha. I blamed the energy in the room. But the truth was I messed up, deeply. I want to say this clearly. I'm not proud of what I did. But I do think Nate was wrong too. He put it into the universe. He manifested that outcome. He was so afraid I'd betray him, he planted the seeds of betrayal. He didn't trust me. Instead of having faith in our bond, he tested me like I was some kind of experiment. And that hurts me to this day. Yes, I sinned, but he orchestrated the entire environment. He chose the Airbnb. He sent the spy. He weaponized his cousin's loyalty. And now I can't stop thinking, if he had trusted me, would any of this have happened? I know some people believe in personal responsibility, and that's fair. But I also believe we are all vulnerable to the power of influence and energy. That's why I say, when you speak fear into the atmosphere, when you give breath to the Jezebel spirit, when you call on temptation with suspicion, you create it. I believe Nate invited that spirit into the room that night. I believe his doubt took form. I believe I was weak, yes, but I also believe I was spiritually attacked, and Nate unknowingly opened the door. I want forgiveness. I want healing. I want Nate back. I'm not asking him to forget what I did, but I need him to remember who I've always been to him. The woman who prayed over his job interviews. The woman who stayed up late making his favorite lemon pie when he had a bad day. The woman who loved him when he didn't love himself. I'm not proud of what I did, but I am not just that moment. And this is just the beginning of the story. There's so much more I want to share about the aftermath, about how Tasha's betrayal went deeper than I thought, about how Nate's cousin admitted he didn't want to spy but was guilted into it, about the dream I had that made me believe reconciliation is still possible. If you want the rest of the story, I'll send it. Thank you for reading. Sincerely, Kayla. Subject: I made a mistake, but I still believe in us. From Kayla, Part 2. Hi again. Thank you for taking the time to read my first email. I honestly didn't expect to feel so many emotions after sending it, but putting it all into words was like opening a door I'd been too scared to touch. I don't know what your readers or listeners will say, or even if you'll choose to share it. That's okay. But I promise that what I sent was only the beginning, and I meant it. There's more, so much more. And if you're still willing to listen, then here it is. After Nate confronted me about what happened at the Bachelorette party, my world cracked into pieces. I left that conversation stunned, ashamed, and honestly, terrified. You think you're going to marry someone? You think you know what the next 50 years of your life looks like? And then with just a few words, it all disappears. I saw it. He told me everything. You kissed him. You let him touch you. You let the devil in, Kayla. That last sentence stayed with me. You let the devil in. But the part I couldn't say then, because I was too broken, too defensive, was that I felt like the devil had walked in days, even weeks, before that party ever took place. I felt it in the tension between us during wedding planning. I felt it when Nate started getting cold, short-tempered. I felt it when he questioned my bridesmaids, my family, even me. He never said it outright, but I knew something in him had shifted. He stopped seeing me as his future wife and started seeing me as a potential liability, a danger to his peace, a test. The night after the confrontation, I packed a bag and stayed with my mom. She was the first person I confessed everything to. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe. I was a mess. Makeup smeared, hair in knots. Still wearing Nate's old hoodie like it meant something. My mom didn't even say, "I told you so," which would have made sense considering she'd been skeptical of how fast we were moving from day one. Instead, she made tea, rubbed my back, and just listened. You have to make peace with what you did, she told me. Whether he takes you back or not, you have to take responsibility and forgive yourself too. Easier said than done. The following week was a blur. The wedding was officially called off. Cancellations, refund requests, awkward conversations with vendors, it all fell on me. I didn't even blame Nate for going silent. He blocked me on everything, Instagram, Facebook, even Venmo. His family pulled back too. His mom, who used to call me daughter-in-love, dropped off the face of the earth. His little sister, who used to text me Bible verses every Sunday, deleted me. I was in exile. I was Eve, cast out of Eden, clutching my shame like a fig leaf. But let me get into what really started opening my eyes to the deeper betrayal behind all of this. About 2 weeks after everything blew up, I ran into Nate's cousin, the Marine, at a grocery store. I almost turned and ran the other direction, but he saw me before I could escape. He walked right up to me, calm as ever, and said, "Kayla, we need to talk." We sat in the parking lot, and that man told me the truth. Not the report back to Nate version, but his truth. He admitted he didn't want to be part of the surveillance. He said Nate pulled him aside a month before the party and asked him to be his eyes and ears. At first, he thought Nate was joking, but Nate was dead serious. He said he had a bad gut feeling. He said Tasha was trouble. He said he couldn't trust the party not to go left. What shocked me the most? Nate didn't just plan for me to be watched. He booked the Airbnb with full intent of controlling the entire environment. His cousin told me the plan was always for him to be on site, in plain sight, but undercover. He wasn't just spying, he was testing me. That hit me harder than any slap. I had no idea the man I loved was already preparing for my downfall. I felt sick, betrayed in a way that didn't cancel out my own wrong, but definitely added layers to the damage. Why didn't he talk to me? Why didn't he express his fears? Why set a trap instead of a boundary? I asked his cousin, "Did you tell him everything, even the stuff that wasn't true?" He shook his head. "No, I told him what I saw, but I didn't tell him what I felt. And what I felt, Kayla, was sadness. Because it didn't look like you were cheating for fun. It looked like you were breaking under pressure." That made me cry right there in the car. Pressure, that's exactly what it was. Pressure to be perfect, pressure to please my bridesmaids, pressure to make Nate feel secure, pressure to ignore my own doubts about rushing. And yes, pressure from Tasha, who turned out to be far more dangerous than I ever realized. Let me tell you about Tasha. She was my best friend since college, ride or die. We'd shared dorm rooms, breakups, road trips, even apartment leases. When I told her Nate and I were getting serious, she was supportive, at least on the surface. She called him church boy, poked fun at how disciplined he was, but always with a smile. What I didn't see back then was the jealousy simmering under her skin. Looking back, it's clear. Every time I shared a moment of happiness with Nate, whether it was a prayer session, a gift, or a spiritual breakthrough, she'd twist her face just a little. She'd say things like, "You sure you want to marry a man who makes you pray instead of party?" Or, "You think this whole waiting for marriage thing is healthy?" I thought she was just being playful. Now I realize she was slowly poisoning the well. After the party, when everything fell apart, she ghosted me. Straight up disappeared. No texts, no calls, nothing. I later found out from a mutual friend that Tasha had planned for a man to tempt me. That the friend of the stripper wasn't just someone who showed up. He was invited specifically because Tasha thought I was too uptight and needed to get it out of my system. Let that sink in. My best friend of nearly a decade orchestrated a scenario where I might fail just to watch it happen, and I walked right into it. Nate thought he was preventing my downfall, but his distrust ended up pushing me further into the hands of someone who wanted to see me fall. That's the bitter irony. We were both so focused on the idea of betrayal that we created the perfect storm for it. Now here's where things get even more complicated. I started going back to church alone. I sat in the back, no makeup, hoodie, sunglasses, just trying to feel something again. And one day, after service, an older woman from Nate's church approached me, Sister May. She was one of the elders who helped organize the original charity event where we met. She said, "I've been praying for you." I broke down in her arms. She told me she didn't know all the details, but she saw the pain in both our eyes. She said sometimes we try to build something holy on top of fractured ground, and unless the cracks are healed, the house will fall, no matter how strong the roof. She invited me to a women's retreat. That retreat saved me. I won't go too deep into the spiritual side unless you want to hear about it, but what I will say is this. I was humbled. I had to face myself, my pride, my flaws, my need for validation, my people-pleasing. I had to sit with the fact that I wanted to be everything to everyone. Nate's perfect bride, Tasha's fun friend, and my mom's pride and joy, and in the end, I became no one to myself. I did a 3-day fast. No food, no phone, just me, God, and a notebook. On the third night, I had a dream. In the dream, I was standing in a white dress, alone, in a burnt-down church. Everything was ash, but in the center of the ruin, there was a small flower growing through the cracks, a daisy. I woke up crying. To me, that flower represented hope, not just for the relationship, but for me. that even in the wreckage, something could grow. A week later, I wrote Nate a letter, not to ask him to come back, not to beg, just to speak. I told him I understood why he couldn't forgive me. I told him I was working on myself. I told him I saw now how both of us contributed to the disaster, not equally, but deeply. I left the letter with his mom. I don't know if he ever read it, but I hope he did. Because in that letter, I told him something I'm telling you now. I don't want to go back to the way things were. I want something better. I want honesty, vulnerability, real healing. I want him to know that I'm not the sum total of my worst night. Yes, I failed. I fell. I sinned. But I didn't stop loving him. And I didn't stop praying for him. Maybe you'll read this and think I'm just another woman trying to avoid consequences. Maybe your audience will say, I deserve the silence I've been given. And maybe they're right. But I'm still here, still hopeful, still believing that love, real love, can survive even this. I'm not sure if Nate will ever see me again, let alone want to marry me. I'm not sure if the flower in my dream was about him, or just about me, growing through my own shame. But I needed to write all this, because my story isn't over yet. And if your viewers want part 3, I'll send it. Thanks again for hearing me out. With humility, Kayla.
You did what you wanted to do. He told you he didn't want you to have a bachelorette party in the first place, and you went against that. Look what happened. You're not listening to your husband. He wasn't planning to lead you in the wrong direction. He told you, honey, I don't think it's a good idea that we do this. You insisted because your girlfriend said you should. Look what happened. You cheated. Ma'am, you put it in the universe. Feel free to send whatever you want to send. That's fine. But like I told you, I'm going to be honest. I'm going to be completely honest. Guys, let me know what you think about this in the comments. If you want to send in a story, send it to truestorynation@gmail.com. Here, I'll put it on the screen. That's truestorynation@gmail.com. I'll catch you guys at the next.